समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Bangladesh has elected a new government. New government has been sworn in. In fact, as we record this, we wait for the new Prime Minister Tarique Rahman to give his address to the nation, which will happen later at night on Wednesday. Towards the second half of this CutTheClutter, Debdutta Chakraborty, who's been in Bangladesh covering this election for us, she will join me from a cafe right in front of the BNP headquarters in Dhaka. So please wait for that because she will bring us wisdom from the ground. This government is a very powerful government because Tarique Rahman by himself, his party by itself, BNP, has got 2/3 majority. That is 209 seats out of the 299 that went to the polls. That's almost exactly 70% of the seats that he has won. 3 more seats have been won by his allies. So he's got 212. In fact, his vote percentage in Bangladesh has a first past the post system like ours. His vote percentage is 49.97%. In fact, it's important to note that even in India, even in the heyday of the Congress Party, when Congress Party was the only party, nobody else mattered, in 1952 elections also, no party has ever got 50% of the vote, 50% or above. Or even with their allies, NDA, UPA, nobody has got above 50%. In this case, BNP has got 49.97% vote. Its allies have got another 3% vote. So together, they got nearly 53% of the vote. That is quite remarkable. Again, the remarkable thing is also tempered by the fact that this is a fight on one side of the ring when there is no bull in the other. The bull is missing in the other. What is that metaphor? What does it mean? What it means is that this is BNP is contesting here while the other major party or the previous incumbent, in fact a long period incumbent, Awami League is not there because it was banned from participating in the election. So in a way it becomes a one-horse race. However, this is not rare. When Sheikh Hasina held elections in 2024 based on which she claimed or asserted legitimacy, which by and large the world did not accept, India did. The world by and large was skeptical about this. She had banned BNP, Khalida Zia and BNP from participating in that election, and Jamaat-e-Islami, now the second party in the country, in any case was banned under the Hasina government. This is also part of a pattern that has emerged around India's neighborhood. A pattern in Pakistan and Bangladesh, the countries who in a way split from united India. In Pakistan, last time an election was held by banning the leading party and the most popular leader, Imran Khan and his party, Pakistan Tarique Insaf. That election produced a government that was then claimed to be a democratically elected government. Again, the parallels between the two countries stopped there because in Pakistan, the army was always in control, and army now is almost formally in control because now Munir goes and speaks for Pakistan everywhere, and usually Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister, follows him a little bit like this. You saw at the Munich Security Conference, again Munir turning up in full Field Marshal's livery. Bangladesh is not like that. In fact, as we talk about Bangladesh, we have to also send a compliment out to the Bangladesh army. They would have been very tempted. There were influences from the Pakistani situation that they should take over because there was a power vacuum. Hasina had become very unpopular. She had escaped to India in exile. There was vacuum in power. The army could have easily moved in. In Bangladesh, the army has taken over twice in the past. That is Ziaur Rahman and H.M. Arshad. They've both been army dictators in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has had also experience and taste of martial law. However, at the same time, Muhammad Yunus, who became a kind of de facto president, come almighty, come field marshal, come the founder of the nation, etc., 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 in Bangladesh for about a year and a half, he tried very hard to build linkages with Pakistan. And these included building linkages between Bangladesh army and Pakistan army. So there was a flurry of visits from Pakistani generals, flurry of visits also, return visits by Bangladeshi commanders to Pakistan. All of that influence did not rub off on Bangladesh army. They stayed professional. If anything, they remained a force for good, because the only time they seemed to intervene in this situation was when the army chief, General Waqar Zaman, publicly spoke last September and said elections should be held early so that stability comes back, certainty comes back, otherwise national security will be threatened. It's possible, and I read stuff, it's possible and it's likely that there were people within the army who might have thought that maybe it's better for us to take over for 3 months and be the interim government instead of leaving it to Yunus and then hold an election. But Waqar Zaman and the other commanders, the top people in the army, stayed away from it. So Bangladesh army, in fact, has shown exceptional professionalism. The reason I say that especially is that in so many ways, they could draw inspiration from Pakistani army, which had led to Ziaur Rahman and H.M. Arshad becoming military dictators there. This military hasn't done it. An election has taken place. It's far from perfect because one of the major parties was out. Nevertheless, it is an elected government. Nearly 60% people have come out to vote, which is very good. This is not the kind of sham that Sheikh Hasina had held. In her election in 2024, her party contested 263 seats and won 222, 263 out of 300. And then she put up a whole bunch of candidates as independents. Those were her proxies because she contested 263. Remaining, she put up independents because there was no other parties. So to make it look like a real election, she put up those candidates. They won. And Jatiya Party, the third party, won 8 seats. Jatiya Party, by the way, and for historical references, is the one that General H.M. Arshad, the dictator, the second military dictator, founded. BNP is the party founded by the widow of General Ziaur Rahman, who was assassinated. Arshad ultimately was convicted and sent to jail, but even after he came to jail, he continued to be a politician. So in a way, he got himself a holy wash to cleanse himself of his dictatorial sins because he joined the mainstream, he did jail time and he became a politician and then died not long back. That detail is important for understanding the context. Now see how this election is gone and see what are the trends. So the most important trend, first of all, understand Bangladesh. Bangladesh and India have a border spanning 4,096.7 kilometers. See this, how this border goes, because India borders Bangladesh, or Bangladesh borders India on 3 sides. So people say, oh, Bangladesh is next to the Siliguri neck. What happens tomorrow? Bangladesh can threaten India, Siliguri neck. I don't call it chicken's neck. If I had my way, I would not let anybody call it the chicken's neck because every country has territories like that. And every country should know how to defend its territory. India is pretty capable of defending that territory. The fact is, if that is chicken's neck, then see, all of Bangladesh is surrounded by India. All of Bangladesh, barring just a little bit with Myanmar, where they have trouble with the Rohingyas coming in. That is bordering the Chittagong Hill Tracts, which is also a kind of soft underbelly of Bangladesh. Understand this border. This is the longest, the largest land border in the world. India, in fact, has 7 borders. Largest is Bangladesh. Second largest is Pakistan, which is 3323. Remember, when we look at the border with Pakistan, note the full map of India. Line of control is something else. The border of India with Pakistan is 3323 kilometers, and border with China is 3488 kilometers. So border with Bangladesh is much longer than that. Once again, as we try and understand Bangladesh, a few more facts. Bangladesh is the least federal of these nations in India's neighborhood, the least federal. leave Bhutan aside because that's a very small population mountain kingdom. But the least federal, Bhutan is a kingdom, the least federal, why do I say the least federal? Because even small Bangladesh has a federal constitution. It also has special powers, a special dispensation, say for its north, for Jaffna and those areas. Pakistan has its provinces, there is a federal government, there are state governments. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, in some ways, Nepal is not quite federal, but there are special dispensations, say for Terai region, etc. Bangladesh has no such thing. Bangladesh is like a union territory might be in India. I am oversimplifying it because all Bangladesh has is districts and divisions. You know, in India we have districts. 3 districts might be a division, so there will be a divisional commissioner. The district will have a deputy commissioner or a district magistrate, DM, etc. Bangladesh has 8 divisions. It does not have provinces, it has 8 divisions. And what are these divisions? Dhaka, Chattogram, Rajshahi, Khulna, Barishal, Sylhet, Rangpur and Mymensingh. See the map, this is the division-wise map of Bangladesh. This is on your screen. See it carefully and then also see which parts of India each of these divisions borders. 6 of these divisions border India. 6 of Bangladesh's 8 divisions border India. It tells you 2 things. One, it tells you how sensitive this border is for India. One, this tells you how sensitive this border is for India, but it also tells you that if the relationship is not good, how vulnerable could Bangladesh be along these borders? Because India is all around Bangladesh. The 2 countries are joined at the hip. Their security is interdependent. 6 of these divisions bordering India are Chattogram, which is used to be Chittagong. Chittagong Hill Tracts includes this, which also borders Myanmar. Chattogram, Rajshahi, Khulna, Sylhet, Rangpur, Mymensingh. Again, see the map of the border regions of India, where India borders Bangladesh. See that map? The border will be marked out for you, and you will see so many Indian states have borders with Bangladesh. The longest section of this border with Bangladesh, as you would imagine, is with West Bengal, that is 2,217 kilometers. The second longest, a little bit surprising, is with the tiny state of Tripura, because we see Tripura as tiny because its population is very small. However, see how Tripura is. It's like a elongated tongue hanging from the southern parts of the northeast like this, with Bangladesh surrounding it on all 3 sides. That is 856 kilometers. Then on the north, Tripura will go into Assam, in fact the Kachar region, and Mizoram as well. Tripura is 856 kilometers, the border with Bangladesh. The third largest section is Meghalaya, 443. You will find Sylhet, Mymensingh, those divisions bordering Meghalaya. Mizoram has 318. Those would mostly be the hilly parts of Chittagong Hill Tracts. In fact, some of India's connectivity projects with Bangladesh, which have sort of moved in fits and starts, some of India's eastern connectivity projects, as a matter of fact, go past Tripura and Mizoram, either into Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal, or Myanmar and the Bay of Bengal. It's a bit counterintuitive given the political problems we have, but the shortest section of these borders that Bangladesh has is with the state of Assam. And Assam has the strongest political issue over Bangladeshis who have come in over time. That is bordering Mymensingh. That's partly also because a lot of the peasants who came into Assam right from early 1920s are Mymensinghiya peasants, because they were short of land. Bangladesh gets easily flooded. So they came into what is Assam now. And then that migration continued for a long time. And that is also the population or the demographic for which, very unfortunately, Himanta Biswa Sarma uses the description Mia Musalman. And he says, I have no problem with my native Muslims, that means Ahomia, Assamese speaking Muslims, but he says he has problems with, I don't want somebody taking out these 30 seconds and saying Shekhar Gupta says he has problems with, so I'm qualifying it. Himanta Biswa Sharma says he has problems with these Bengali-speaking Muslims who came from Bangladesh or East Pakistan, who he calls as Mia Muslims. The other thing you need to know about Bangladesh is that it has a population of 17.6 crores, that is the 2022 population. It's almost constant now because Bangladesh's total fertility rate is 2.1%, which is about the same as India, which is almost the replacement level, which means the population is not going up. It has literacy rate of nearly 80%, great social indicators. Female percentage in population is more than 50%. It's about 51%, 50.8 to 51%, which is much, much, much better than, say, India. Bangladesh demographic, however, has a problem. While its population is not growing up, Bangladesh is a very crowded country. Bangladesh, for a major nation, for a nation above the population of 1 crore, 10 million, is the most heavily populated country in the world per square kilometer of population. I will just give you a count. Bangladesh features in the top 10, but see all of the others. It is the only country in the top 10 in the world by way of population density that has a population of more than 1 crore. Ahead of it are Macau, Monaco. Macau is not a country, but it's a territory. Macau, Monaco, Singapore, Hong Kong, again a territory, not a country, Gibraltar, Bahrain, Maldives, Malta. And if you want to see their populations, Hong Kong is the highest with 73 lakhs, Gibraltar has 40,000, Monaco has only 30,000. So for a major country in the world, Bangladesh is very heavily crowded, which is 1,200 people per square kilometer, and the land is easily flooded. It's crisscrossed with many rivers, rivulets, nalas, etc. So it has too little arable land or usable land as a percentage of its total territory. Those are the challenges that Bangladesh has. In comparison, just for our understanding, India's population density is 497, which you would say is about 40% of Bangladesh's, which in turn is 3 times as much of China. I'm just giving you these numbers so we can visualize the 3 sets of demographics. India is 3 times more populated, more densely populated than China, which means Bangladesh is almost 8 to 10 times densely populated than China. Now see the election map of Bangladesh. If you see this map, you will see that almost all the regions bordering India are painted deep green. Why? That's because it's in the border districts. I won't even say border divisions because divisions are very large in Bangladesh. Each division is like a state. It's a unitary system, not federal. So each division is like a state. So I will not say per division, but if you see the border areas, the border districts or the border constituencies seem to have been swept by Jamaat-e-Islami. And remember, Jamaat-e-Islami was ideologically committed to reunification with Pakistan. That's the reason Sheikh Hasina had banned them. They were also under trial, many of their leaders, for helping the Pakistani army during the freedom movement, freedom struggle in 1971, and also for being party to many atrocities. Right now, Jamaat has cleaned up its act. It has not talked about Pakistan. In fact, it has not talked about any reunification for quite some time now, particularly since the ban was lifted on it by Muhammad Yunus administration. In fact, in its manifesto, he's written a fairly healthy and harmless line saying that they want cordial and equal relationship with all their neighbors like India and Myanmar. They haven't mentioned Pakistan. A background, however, is there. The history is there. After I've given you my sense of this election in some detail, Debdutta Chakraborty, who's been covering the election on the ground for us for the past several days and is still there, she will join in with me from a cafe right in front of the BNP headquarters in Dhaka. So we will hear from her and she will bring us answers from the ground. And you know what? We can send correspondents, we can cover these things from the ground only because so many of you take paid subscriptions with us. So if you've done so, then thank you very much. You enable us to bring this fine journalism to you. If you haven't, please do, because good journalism is a larger common good and it cannot come for free. Debdutta, congratulations. You held a peaceful election and produced a stable government with a very good majority. What do we expect? What does India expect from this government? What signs have we seen so far?
For the larger part, elections have been peaceful here. There were hardly one or two incidents of violence that were reported around areas, and for the larger part, BNP has kind of based its election on what Tarique Rahman says, a Bangladesh first plan or a Bangladesh first agenda. He has in his campaigns earlier said that they do not want to govern like a fugitive autocrat in reference to Hasina, and has promised a return to a certain kind of clean politics. And he has repeatedly mentioned, even in his first press conference that he held after winning the landslide victory, there were a lot of questions on how he would manage, the India, Pakistan, China question, extradition of Hasina, the ICT trial. And his clear answer in two words was, one is ensuring the rule of law, and second, national interest being above all. So he's clearly putting that kind of an agenda first, and I think that is something that India can expect as well. That and people too have, it has kind of found a resonance with the people, because the numbers do suggest that people have come out in large droves to vote for his politics. So there's also a shift in his politics. What is being discussed here on ground since his election is how he is reaching out to his opposition party members. A day after being elected, he met the Jamaat Emir, he met Nahid Islam, the NCP convener. So what people seem to be discussing here is how BNP is now projecting, a reformist image since Awami League's kind of disappearance from the political landscape in Bangladesh, how it is projecting itself and filling the void that Awami League left behind, and how he's changing the politics of, the grammar of how political collaborations are done in the country. His outreach to both of his opposition parties was seen as a very good move, but then again, when you come to India, none of his now elected cabinet members or he himself has given, a very any pro country kind of an answer. What they do say is that we are pro people, we are pro Bangladesh. They have given a 31-point reform agenda where every single thing talks about sovereignty, national integrity, and putting Bangladesh first. That has been his election campaign since day one, and going ahead, he seems to be following that agenda for now.
Debdutta, you followed the campaign. Did India feature in the campaign, and if so, to what extent and in what way?
No, that was something very interesting that I noticed, that India did not feature in any of their political campaigns. I also attended a few rallies, both by BNP and the Jamaat and the NCP alliance, and none of them, mentioned India or Pakistan for that matter. One of them had some key points that they kept repeating on and on what kind of a Bangladesh do you want to see going ahead, and how, the fascist force or fascism was something that they kept mentioning repeatedly. Nahid Islam, the NCP convener, mentioned in his speech. Dr. Shafiqur Rahman in a rally in Mohammadpur in Dhaka mentioned it on the same day. Shafiqur Rahman in a rally in Mohammadpur in Dhaka mentioned it. And on the same day, there was a simultaneous rally happening in Kola Bagan, where Tarique Rahman said that, we are going ahead with he brought in two core agendas. One is the family card and the green card. And he said that once we come into power, what we want is to ensure that every single person gets to have these family cards and green cards. And that kind of had a lot of support within the people, because once the rally ended, everyone seemed to be talking about the family card and green card, but India did not feature largely in their campaigns.
That's a change. Can we draw the conclusion that at this point, Bangladesh public opinion is more internally focused?
Yes, I would largely say that the public opinion is internally focused, but then again, the student party, that is NCP, seems to still, base their politics on an anti-India rhetoric for now, at least. Like we have discussed earlier, the one word that you would see on campuses or in the student party is Indian hegemony. So they keep saying that, we will not, we will ensure that the Indian hegemony that was there during Hasina's rule, is what they claim, does not feature largely in Bangladeshi politics anymore. But for the two key parties, that is Jamaat and BNP, India, Pakistan, China, none of them were part of their political rhetoric or their narratives. Even after they won, their speeches did not feature any of them. The larger answer every time they were asked about any of these countries was the national interest of Bangladesh above all.
That's good. At the same time, while NCP, the student party, made India such a strong plank and what they call as Indian hegemony, you will tell us what it's called in Bangla. It's true that they did very badly. They just got about 6 seats despite being in alliance with the Jamaat and only 3% of the vote. In fact, if they did not have Jamaat as their ally, maybe they would have got nothing. And this This is 3% of the vote, despite contesting about 37 seats or so.
Absolutely. They barely won 6 seats out of the 37 seats that they contested, which is a vote margin of 3%. And I mean, the only positive thing out of that is for NCP that the member who was elected from Noakhali, which is Abdul Hanan Masood, is apparently the youngest MP in Bangladesh and in the Indian subcontinent for now. And when I spoke to him yesterday, he said that the NCP right now seems to be focusing on how to take the party forward in the next 6 months. And they sound very confident, even though they have very, very few votes, and they are confident about the fact that in the coming elections, NCP, the two key things that stood out for me was how he spoke about the fact that people on ground have not given up on the movement. They have voted for the students, which shows that they still have faith in the uprising or the revolution, that they call it. They say the people still have faith in the uprising. He says that I was self-financed, and it was people would actually finance my election. People voted for me, and this shows that we are still relevant, because how relevant is NCP was a big question during the electoral campaign as well. And when I spoke to people on the ground, nobody seemed to be speaking about it. There was rather a certain anger on the way they had capitalized on the July movement.
Debdutta, back to Jamaat-e-Islami. Leopards don't change their spots like this. Tigers don't change their stripes because it's Bangladesh. Let me use the metaphor tigers. See this map. Once again, see this map and the victories. That this is a very extraordinary performance by Jamaat because they have swept all the border regions with India. And also, we'll show you a second chart. This chart tells you how Jamaat has historically done in Bangladesh, even when they've not been banned and they've contested. In fact, in one of the earlier Khalida governments, they also had 2 ministers. See how poorly they've done, how few seats they've had, and now 68. This is, by Jamaat standards, for their politics and ideology, it's a landslide. So what does this mean going ahead for BNP, for Bangladesh, for India, and for Jamaat? You think this portends something for the future, or you think this was a hawa which they benefited from, particularly because Awami League was not there?
Two key things from here. One is definitely the void that Awami League left behind was filled by Jamaat. But when I spoke to their party members and also analysts on the ground, there were three major key points that they would highlight. One is that Jamaat has an extremely, strong hold in the rural areas. Way back, they realized that the urban voters will not.
And if I may interrupt you, a very strong ground level worker base.
Yes, absolutely. So the key factors, behind Jamaat's rise, first of all, of course, was the kind of void that was left behind by Awami League and also Jamaat workers, especially the grassroots workers, party members. And what analysts told me here is that Jamaat has a very strong grassroots movement in rural areas, which functions, in way of relief, charity work, scholarships, and also, the reformist agenda that that Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, since he took hold of Jamaat-e-Islami in 2019, has specifically tried to project, and he has done a makeover where he has even fielded minority candidates. And mostly, what has worked in their favor is the kind of, if you look at the vote divisions as well, they have individually won 58 seats out of the 68 seats have come from the rural areas. Now, one of the key factors, of course, is their stronghold in rural regions, the border areas, like you were discussing. One of the analysts that I spoke to told me that there's a strong anti-India sentiment along those border regions as well, which is why they did vote for Jamaat, although BNP holds the majority in almost all of these regions. Sylhet is one place that Jamaat could not win at all, but then the people mentioned here is that Sylhet is Tarique Rahman's wife's home or their area. So that can explain, even though it's a rural area, that can explain why Jamaat did not have that kind of a vote tally there. But overall, the three key factors were that they had already, post the 2013 ban, understood that urban areas was not going to be their stronghold, and they had consistently worked as cadre members in the rural areas, and that reflected in the vote bank. And most of the people that I spoke to, especially some from Rangpur, which is the border area, told me that it is either Awami League or Jamaat for us. We will not vote for BNP. because for them the larger questions or the questions that are raised in these urban areas or say in the Dhaka city is the women question, and how if Jamaat comes into power it won't let women exercise their freedom. Now these are questions that analysts and people tell me that do not matter in the rural areas, even among the women. So these are questions that they do not consider largely while going out to vote for them. These are questions that analysts and people tell me that do not matter in the rural area, even among the women. So these are questions that they do not consider while going out to vote for them. And one large thing is that they have largely voted. What they say is that they have largely voted for these two parties in the era of Bangladeshi politics, and so why not give a third party a chance, which they also see as a bastion of anti-corruption, because they say that till now Jamaat has not ever held power and Jamaat has not been corrupt. So that kind of explains the phenomenon of rise that their vote has seen across rural areas, and why their overall vote count has increased, which is unprecedented and historical even in the history of the entire movement. Like we discussed in Pakistan, Bangladesh, overall Jamaat has never won this kind of a seat tally.
It's several times more than Jamaat-e-Islami has ever won in Pakistan. Debdutta?
Yes, I mean, it is unprecedented, and the spokesperson for Jamaat also told me that for them, this is not a setback. For them, this is just a beginning. It shows that there's a support for Jamaat, and it will only grow so much that he was confident enough to tell me that if this election had been held, say 6 months from now, Jamaat would have won even more shares or even perhaps be in power.
Thank you, Debdutta. On that note, I will let you go. That said, I will just add one more fact on the side. The urban-rural divide in Bangladesh is very sharp, and that is sharpened by the fact that Bangladesh is a very urbanized country. It's a very crowded country, densely populated. It's also much more urbanized than India. India would be about 30%, Bangladesh is about 40% and rising. By 2030, 50% of Bangladesh will be urbanized. And in Bangladesh, just one city, Dhaka, has about 15%, 15% of all of Bangladesh's population. In comparison, Delhi or the greater Delhi area with a population of just about 3 crores or a little bit more is in the range of about 1.5%, only 1.5% of India. There is a very heavy Dhaka overhang over Bangladesh. There are other urban concentrations like Chittagong and Khulna, for example, and the rural areas tend to be on the borders with India because, as you can see, this is not a very wide country with India on all three sides. So these realities we have to understand. These realities people in Bangladesh also understand, and that is why it is so important to watch how this relationship goes now that Bangladesh has a stable government.